Hello, my name is Hank Smith. I'm a researcher for Case Western Reserve Social Justice Institute. And right now we are interviewing Mr. Ephraim Abdullah. He's a longtime resident of East Cleveland, and today is October 23rd, 2012. How you doing today, Mr. Abdullah?
Greetings, thank you.
Okay, you want to tell me a little bit about your family history and how it relates to the city of East Cleveland?
My mom was born in Alabama. My dad was born in Georgia. They came together here in Cleveland with brothers and sisters in the early 70s, late 60s. Their joint, or should I say, the common ground that they had then were the Nation of Islam. You know, where all my aunts and aunties, well, I'm not gonna say all of them, but a majority of my aunts and aunties, they were young at the time, and that was where everyone were actually growing into the knowledge and awareness of Islam. You know, my mom was raised up as Christian, and I believe my dad was raised up as Christian. But in the late 60s, early 70s, my parents got married, and they were a strong, significant part of the Nation of Islam here in Cleveland. As I have 3 siblings, 2 sisters and a brother. My dad was very close to the minister here in Cleveland, Theodore Hamza of Cleveland, from the Nation of Islam. And we started, my father owned a bakery. My parents owned a bakery. And we had originally lived in Ward 2 on Arbondale. This was in my young years when I was born and when I became conscious of memory. I believe it was in those years. We later moved to Ward 3, East Cleveland, Claiborne, where my mom still have the home. My dad is deceased. My sister, my older sister, she still stays in East Cleveland. She stays up on Wymore. And my brother last owned a house on Hazel in East Cleveland, Ward 3 as well. And I stay in Ward 4, East Cleveland.
So all your siblings and your mother are still in the city of East Cleveland?
Yes, right. For the most part, I have naturally 4 children by birth. That would be 3 boys and a daughter. I have acquired 8 more children by marriage and relationships, stepchildren. It's a beautiful thing, you know. More than anything, out of all my children, only one of them came through the East Cleveland school system, which was one of my stepsons. And he only stayed in it thus far a year because he was having trouble with his mom and doing well in the Twinsburg school system. So we brought him here with me and my current wife, Ms. Anja Abdullah, and he was the only child of all children out of 12. that came through the East Cleveland school system.
I noticed that you consider yourself, as far as your race, Asiatic black. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Asiatic. There's really only two races on the earth, and that's European descent and Asian descent. European descent, Italian, European. Asian descent, those are from Africa, China, you know. That's the reality. Here in America, it's been broke down that, you know, black, white is the race, which is a miscommunication. More than anything, you need to know your nationality, your creed, and your being. You know, those are the things that identify you. I believe those are the things that qualified you as, in the Constitution. Without knowing your nationality and your creed, it only makes you 3/5 human. Right. So the other 2/5, I believe, are made up of nationality and creed, and being, as they call the black man in America. He had no identity of his nationality and his creed from the mishap of slavery. So those are the guidelines for that.
Okay, thank you. I noticed that you went to the East Cleveland school system. What do you think about the school system when you were coming up in it, and what you think about it now?
The school system back then was a beautiful thing. For the most part, there were more black teachers involved in the education of our children, especially at a younger age. I went to Mayfair, and at the time, Mayfair maybe had less than 20% were white teachers. And there were black teachers that really cared, that were in the school system. There were some teachers who brought well-known entertainers to school that I can remember, that gave us an initiative and an insight on, you know, I didn't at the time really realistically understand, but the one black teacher, Miss Rush, she was a 6th grade teacher at the time. She used to bring the Daz Band to Mayfair, you know, and let them speak to the students. It was a beautiful thing. You know, they never did a show or anything, but they came up to the school and spoke to the students. Before a child can become consciously aware of his environment and the world, he first needs to know himself and be surrounded by those that are like him. So for the school system to have more than 10% of others teaching, it's just a very bad idea. You know, simply because you can't having lions teach tigers how to be tigers is just against nature. You know, even though they're of the same species, they're both big cats of the jungles, but they have different characteristics and principles in which how they bond with each other and how they live and adjust, how they hunt. You know, they have differences. And the same goes with the mindset of human. You know, black people in America, or those of Asian descent, have a different concept of how they do things than of those of European descent, which is just nature. You know, our origination by itself is from different sources. So the ideology of being one big happy family is not laced in the realities of the world. It's a quality to adjust and understand how to function and have good relations socially and in behavior with one another, but you have to realize that there are differences that cause conflict between the relationships on a large level in America that have to be resolved by more than, well, the key resolve is to have knowledge of self.
Okay. Now, I imagine you went through the East Cleveland school system in the 70s and 80s. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, during that time, what kind of diversity did you see within the East Cleveland school system?
There were social issues among the Caucasian teachers that I knew of while I was going to Shaw, Kurt, and Mayfair. You know, at Mayfair, I have a big sister, and she had a teacher by the name of Mr. Plum. He had a hygiene problem coming to school, and he had an attitude problem. You know, some of the kids referred to as niggers. You know, which, why are you teaching here? Yeah. You know, right. And don't get me wrong, I understand, you know, you know, the word nigger. You know, I understand the origin of that word. It's a wrongdoer, someone who has ignorance, you know, and if you have robbed the people of their knowledge, then of course they act like niggers. So I can understand the core of calling it like you call it, but reality is they're not the only niggers, you know. But and at I believe some of my best years were at Kirk. I had teachers who were aware, and they saw that I was aware. I believe they may even have interacted with my parents and knew that I was from the Nation of Islam. So there were teachers who embraced me without me knowing I was being embraced. You know, I was just a happy kid. You know, and as most kids unaware, they get into trouble, you know. But when I got to Shaw, I had good interactions with a teacher named Mr. Tuttle, who was a Caucasian man. I had Mr. Eiler was a teacher at Shaw, who, like, I don't know if it was a part of his social science or not, but he told me he didn't care if I came to class or not. It's my math teacher, you know. And as I was getting older, I started realizing there were more European teachers, you know, that we were coming into class with, you know. And you just have to realize, you know, to have a natural love for someone that you teach. That plays a part in how you teach, you know, especially if you're human. And, you know, the cowboyism of the European race that I've witnessed, you know, they don't have the patience and the actual, what our race needs in a misguided young male. He needs another male of his kind that can identify and guide in a way that has that kind of impact. Not saying that there aren't any good European teachers. No, there are some great ones. But speaking about East Cleveland, right, in the school system, like the band, when I was in the band, I was in the band between 86 and 90. They got rid of Mr. Thomas, who was a very good band teacher, and they replaced him with a teacher from Australia, Mr. McAtee. Mr. McAtee smiled like John Elway from the Denver Broncos. It looked like he was smiling, but it was just his expression. So he looked like he was smiling most of the time, but he did not like having me involved in the band.
Because you were Islam?
I'm not sure. I think it was a black male thing more than anything, because a friend of mine that I grew up with, Michelle Lanier, became the drum major. And he spoke to her and told her she should stay away from me. He's not knowing what friends are. She said the words to her mom, and she said the words to my mom, and you know, what was it about me that he saw that he wanted me? I mean, I was more of a guidance to her. We were friends, and I was protective over her for some reason or another. And, you know, as an adult, you know, I don't know what he thought he may have saw, but 2012 today, I still have that same guidance in this community. Not only as a student then, because at Shaw I started becoming more conscious. My dad was speaking more and giving me more insight to my being. So the blessing of a father, a spiritual father. Oh man, God has blessed me.
Yeah. So
Plenty.
you came up with your mother and father.
Married in the same house, yes. And my dad was a very influential part of my spirituality.
What kind of work did he do?
My father was a baker. He owned his own bakery. And he baked from home, and as well had a brick and mortar location on 105 that my mom and him operated and employed people. My father was an entrepreneur, you know. My mom, she's a nurse. You know, that was her passion and her desire. But as a wife, she helped her husband until she was able to go to school and get what she needed out of life to become what she was destined to be. You know, but my dad was an entrepreneur, and I remember young memories when he had a bakery on 105 of the hot tamale man and my dad being close in association.
That's Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Wilson from Hot Tamales. Okay. Yeah. And I remember the same taste of the hot tamale then still has the same taste today. Okay. Yeah.
You know, I'd like to get back to the schools. During the time that you were in there through the 70s and 80s, how about the diversity of students? What kind of ratio was there any white students, Asian students, or did you go to school with mostly blacks?
It was a majority of black students in the East Cleveland school system in the time that I attended school. Very rare that a white student came through East Cleveland. I remember maybe of 1 or 2 students in the system that came through there, and everyone knew those students. I remember a trade student came between 86 and 90, and they named him, you know, it wasn't a ill treatment when others came. Our people are very hostful, as I'll say. The young man was a trade student, I believe, from Australia or somewhere, but we gave him the title of the homecoming king the year he was there. And I don't even know if he stayed a whole year, but in his experience being there, he was treated well, you know. He had some, you know, from what I saw, you know. He had a lot of friends, a lot of people came close to him. However, you know, it was a majority black school system, 90% or better, all while I was there. All the schools, from Mayfair to Kirk, which is now Heritage, to Shaw, you know. And you know, all the time that we were going to Shaw and looking back to how Shaw was renovated, I didn't realize, I've never seen the mural that was once inside of Shaw, that when they were redoing the schools over, there were a team of professionals who came in and collected that mural, you know. But I wasn't aware that that was a hidden treasure inside of the school.
Where's the mirror at now?
I'm not aware, you know, but it's something that was apprehended by a team of professionals who understood the value of
It's not in the new school?
I haven't seen it, you know, but I remember of them coming to get it when the school was being renovated and made new. That was one of the main things that was on their list of items to collect from the whole school.
Now, you said at least one of your children went through part of East Cleveland school system?
He spent a year in the system, you know. Like I said, he was having trouble at his Twinsburg mom's home in school. So between the two brothers, I took the one who I felt I could mold the most in this aspect. And at the same time, with my present wife, he was the one who was more tolerable with the 6 girls that we lived with. So I took him and sent him through the school system that year, which was, I believe, 2011, 2010.
So what did you find as far as experience and time with the administration now as compared to what your parents probably had to go through with the city of East Cleveland schools?
Which is an amazing question. While I were in school, I dealt with the administration on a social level. You know, I wasn't a bad student. An unguided, very explorative student, I were. I had a lot of questions. I found myself going to all the offices and trying to learn more about what it takes or what it is that I need to know and the structure of the school, which I didn't have as many questions, well, not questions, but not as many answers, because I were mingled with some of the devilishment of being a teenager at the same time. So going through the offices, I was an office monitor when I first got to Shaw in the 9th grade. So I spoke to, at the time, Mr. Foreman was the principal and his secretary, which his secretary and I are still good friends, and I know her husband. But at the time, I believe she was dating one of my neighbors, who were one of my childhood buddies growing up, whose dad owned a limousine company. But the diversities from then, I believe I saw there was more communications at the time as far as being on the same page and having the same agenda for the students then. And now, I believe it's coming back, because most of the administration that are in the school system now are students who went through the school system. So I believe the passion is there, because this is a school that most of the administrative staff actually grew up and went through. So I believe there's more passion and drive to resolve, but is it always that answer? I can't answer that, because I don't have the data sheets in front of me to see how the school system as a whole is performing. But yeah, most of the administrative staff that I've seen were students of the same school system, majority female, you know. So I may even attend some classes, because I love to teach, and I may go into the school system and begin teaching again.
You know, just recently, the City of East Cleveland School District went through a situation with the East Cleveland Public Library where they wanted, some people wanted to turn it over to the county and some people wanted to keep it part of East Cleveland. And did you have any feelings on that?
Majorly. At the time, it looked like East Cleveland as a whole was being given away. Because not only was the library going through its thing, the service department at the post office was going through its thing. They were speaking about shutting down Helen S. Brown because there was no funding for that. They were talking about shutting down the Martin Luther King Recreational Civic Center. And I can understand some of why the money's not being generated. You don't have innovative leadership bringing in new curriculum and new ideas that have an impact that would continue a process of growth. Like, I spoke to the recreational department as well as the mayor and his staff about Huron Road Hospital leaving, which was another income base that was given away. So since it's right there, the land is right there at Forest Hill Park, my suggestion was to turn that land into an indoor water park because there's no swimming pools in the city. And they can build it sustainably with renewable green technology, solar panels, wind turbines, and the water main is right there as well. And it could be an attraction for the city that could bring money as well as visitation to the city, even with the benefit to people that if they live in the city, it wouldn't cost but so much to come in, you know, but the local colleges, indoor water park, there's not one around here, you know, and indoor means all year round, you know. But as far as the library goes, my input, I actually ran for the library board, and I was beat out by a lawyer at the time because the school system have to select whoever is that were to fill the seat on the board. But looking at the stats and the, I believe it was the School of Oberlin who did the data research for how sustainable as far as what incomes are coming and can the library sustain. In regards, Greg Reese played a major part in how everything was unfolding. And I don't know if it was in favor for the city, the way that things lined up. They ended up closing 2 of 3 libraries in the city, you know, and all it needed to do was be managed properly and money go in the direction in which it would promote sustainability for the system to stay in place. To add to that, he put together what they call the Greg Reese Theater. And my question was, not being a public servant or a self-servant, but there's a East Cleveland Theater directly across the street from the library. And at that time of constructing a new Greg Reese Performing Arts Theater directly across the street from another theater, why would you not combine the efforts and put a bridge across Euclid that could have brought a new energy to our city that would have promoted the new regrowth of the old theater to have new programming? You know, he went through a lot to put that new theater up, but he really, I don't believe he really considered the future of the city by not combining a theater like they did in Cleveland Heights at their library, connecting it to the Bodman Theater that's directly across the street. Put a nice bridge up that can connect you to, and that would have given more options of after school projects and what have you. It would have been a better idea to put a bridge there to connect those theaters.
And that's another thing, the East Cleveland Theater, that's been there a long time. Do you have any feelings on the East Cleveland Theater and what it means to the city of East Cleveland?
East Cleveland Theater, which I performed in March of 2009, I believe. I played the part of a soldier's play. I played the main guy, Peterson. But at the time, I was trying to embrace my relationship with Miss Tucker, Miss Teresa Tucker, who was running the center at the time. She really weren't acceptant of community input. You know, she had her own agenda from what I saw. Because many times I came and I offered my help. That's originally how I actually got in that play. Coming up to help at the theater with what I had and knew how to do as far as grants and things of that sort for nonprofits. I was getting my information from Matt Zone in Cleveland, who had redeveloped all of Detroit Shoreway area and helped bring in the project, the Steel Yard. And their theaters over there are jumping. They got movie theaters. I mean, it's jumping over there. And this is the inclusional process in which the leaders in our community today are pretty much restricting or holding back the development and growth our city should be having. You know, they're not allowing the inclusional process. You have to fight to help your own, opposed to when some others come in, strangers come in, and they open up the door like, yeah, you know. So realistically, our people really need a self-evaluation of how they perform. And as they say, money don't buy me. Money buys a lot of the people in leadership, and that's a bad thing.
Do you think we would benefit from talking with other communities like the near west side, Ohio City, Tremont, Cleveland Heights even, you know, as far as getting more business and cooperation in the city? Do you think we would benefit from having a discussion with these other locations?
Currently, I think there are discussions, which it should be discussions, because there's always things going on in other cities that you can learn from and benefit from, especially being that you're neighboring cities, you know. But at the same time, there are a lot of gifts or gifted people in our city that have energy and ideas that they can bring to the table. Now, is there leadership in place that understand how to receive and set up committees to embrace these ideas is where the problem comes in on certain levels, you know. And then, you know, don't get me wrong, everyone's got an idea and a suggestion, but the follow through on our part as a community, once we have an idea, do we follow up and stay with the idea? And that's in any community, you know. The thing is leadership, you know, main thing. That's why you're put in leadership. So when ideas come, you know how to receive and implement and develop those ideas, you know.
Could you tell me what your fondest memories of East Cleveland is?
You know, the street life of East Cleveland. I came up through the street life in East Cleveland. You know, I went through the transition and the harshness of the streets. And the beautiful thing about your children, they adapt to any environment. And that was an environment that we had to adapt to, the drug wars that came upon most inner cities in America. And I would have to speak for mine, which is East Cleveland, you know. There was a plan that was brought on the children of the babies that were born between the 60s and the 70s, which was some of the strongest times for black people in America. You know, we had the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Muhammad Ali was knocking everybody out in the ring. We had our strength, we had our dignity. It was say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. You know, black people had shown that they were coming back to life, you know, from a dead, you know, as they call the scripture called it, the bones in the valley. You know, we were coming back to life. And at the same time, while we were coming back to life and getting our strength, there were others who saw it and were intimidated by it. And they started planning how to get rid of those that are coming to life, especially those babies, because that's where the strength was really coming in at. You know, you had people who were eating right, living right, and then they were having babies under this condition with the mindset. So our enemies knew that the babies of the 60s and the 70s had a strength with them because they saw the parents thinking in living conditions. And that's when actually most of our parents acquired properties in East Cleveland at that time. It was a movement and it was alive, you know. And our enemies watched and knew and planned. So for the drugs to hit our community like it did, with all the other things that came with it, they planned that 100%. And it was a problem. You know, I even look back at the Patty Hearst story, you know, and that was before my birth, I believe, you know. But I do history. I try to see what was here before I became actually present. And these are things, you know, the Black Panthers and, you know, several other social and civic organizations came together. In the process, arrogance came on our people and egos came, you know. When a person is feeling themselves, it could be a dangerous thing if they don't humble themselves in certain capacities, you know. So preparation and righteousness, you know, and doing what's good. Those are the elements that really could have shielded us from the blows that came. Knowledge, that's mainframe. A lot of, I look at how some parents have conflict with their children. These were those parents who avoided knowledge, true knowledge, and they chose ignorance over knowledge. I'd rather have a big fancy car instead of buying my kids this encyclopedia set. Or I'd rather live for me instead of prepare for their future. And when you're living like that, you lose your babies. And your babies come back to you with that lost thought. And that's where the conflict comes in. Because you would want your child to know things that you know, but you have to teach them in order for them to know and be prepared. Like others teach their children to prepare for legal and law situations that would be beneficial because they know the law. You know, if you know the law of what's right and what's wrong, then you're pretty much guideline and find yourself walking a path that are laced by righteousness and law. But if you don't have no one teaching that, and law is a very important thing in this world, country, you know, Thurgood Marshall, you know, you got to know the law. You know, that's what, if you don't know the law, people take advantage of it and misuse you. Yeah.
In what ways has the city changed over time, and what do you think contributed to those changes?
Like I said, being present at leadership meetings, town hall meetings, actively monitoring and making sure that things are what they're supposed to be. Those are the things that slipped past the people in leadership in East Cleveland. You know, the intimidation that came with the fire of the misguided children between the drug wars, because it was drive-by shootings, everybody had a gun, and it was wild out here. You know, people was afraid to leave their homes. Things were going on, people didn't want to address conflict that was in their neighborhood, and they knew it was wrong. And the heat that the babies had was something to see. I mean, we were a strong people that had babies in the 60s and 70s. This is the time when, like I said, Muhammad Ali was knocking people. So the babies that came out, they were supercharged. And now they're grown and aggressive, you know? So now you have parents who are not showing so much strength or discipline. But those who did show strength or discipline, they challenged it and made it step in line. But it wasn't many of them. They couldn't be everywhere. But the ones who were there, they were there. And they made it very clear they were there, you know. And that's why knowledge is so important, you know, and being obedient to your Lord. You know, because when that fire that came, it was intimidating, wild. And then it was infused with something of another element, the drugs. So these kids looked like they was damn fools, flat out. Like, what the hell is this? High, looking like this and coming up with an attitude. You know, you looking like, what the hell? But those who know and have that instilled strength in them smacks that down. The fuck is wrong with you? You know, we have no fear of what? Only fear we know is the fear of our Lord. Anything else, good luck. Realistically. So it's beautiful. You know, East Cleveland's transition, like I said, that's the transition. Parents who had strength and would stand up for righteousness, and parents who didn't have as much strength and stayed away when they saw the wrong going. And then that monitored how the streets developed and grew. Because when them same kids came on them streets where them strong parents sent them off those streets. And they got their kids together and said, don't you have that around here. You know, and showed them why. This is our home. You know, and you have to do that. Around the corner, I remember the brother, you know, robbed the church's chicken. First time I ever saw SWAT live. They was on a house, you know. It was I mean, I was outside playing one minute, the next minute, here comes SWAT and all this, and I'm looking at it on TV. Like, what? On the corner of my street. Like, what the hell going on in there? You know? But like I said, you have to have strength and righteousness, guidance.
You had mentioned that some people would not, they could see the things that was going on, but they wouldn't do anything about it. Do you see that changing?
I am a change on that, because when I see things, I make it clear to you. That ain't gonna fly around here. And that's my purpose. I find other brothers like me, and I try to bond that strength. So yeah, I'm that change. I am that change. I am that person. And like I said, my son was not correctly behaving in the Twinsburg school system. So I brought him closer to me. Now let me see you act like that. And everything went straight, you know. So that strength. I am that strength. And that's why I'm taking this interview today. I'm sitting with strength. You know, and this is the bond of the strength that is needed in our community to make things what they need to be. You know, you have to stand up and act out what you want to see changed in your community.
Lead by example.
Lead by example. If you don't do that, then good luck. Whatever what you get, what you get.
Okay, how has race or racism impacted you personally, and how has it impacted the city of East Cleveland?
Well, we're still a majority black community, you know. And based on the social behavior of the blacks in this region of the world, Northeast Ohio, there are some who do exceptionally better than others, but on a general, blacks are still trying to wake up and get up, you know, and stay up, you know, because that snooze button is something for real. You know, some of them get up like they up enough to turn the snooze button on and go back to sleep, you know, which is a problem for us, you know. We need to wake up and stay up. A lot of people wake up for the moment, like they up, and we out doing what we're doing. Where he at? He's back asleep, you know. So you have to be mindful of that syndrome that's in our people in Northeast Ohio. We wake up and go back to sleep. I woke up and went back to sleep. Woke up and went back to sleep. But my energy, I stay up for a good period of time before I doze back off to sleep. And it's, I hate sleep. I'm gonna just tell her like this. If I could stay up and not go to sleep, I would love it. You know, I want every portion of it, the experience of life and building and developing and doing what I am purposed to do on earth. I want to do what I came here to do.
What about the financial inequities of the area? Do you think that East Cleveland people don't bring resources into the city of East Cleveland as they would in Cleveland Heights or University Circle? Do you think we're losing out and the other communities are gaining? And why do you think that? If so, why do you think that?
The gatekeepers. There are those who have control of what happens in certain industries, financial institutes that have lines that are bordered to say these people in this area don't get this type of benefit. You know, so yeah, the real estate industry, the black realtors, they've identified, you know, that harshness, which it should be a class action suit against certain financial institutes and leadership offices that performed those discriminations. And I'm going to push that button, you know, more than anything. Yeah, the discrimination. Those things are true and real, you know. The city planning, there are professionals who, as they call sanctions, who put sanctions on city governments within their own nation. It's real, you know. And why, you know? And at the same time, what's the preventive action that we as a community can take that can override this? Because it's all about planning. As they say, the devil makes a plan and God makes a plan. And indeed, God is the best of planners. So, you know, it's all about communicating and actually having the right leader in place that could innovatively identify strategies that can make things happen in the way that this community needs to function without having the outside influence for their own personal gains.
Do you believe that our leadership, our elected leaders in this town, could have something to do with why we are not prospering more in our community?
100%. A lot of people miss Eric Brewer now. I can guarantee you that. Eric Brewer, and there's no disrespect, it's just that those who understand how to follow a plan without diverting will do well. Eric Brewer was staying focused on what was given to the city as a master plan. I asked him personally, what he said the plan is the master plan. We spent money years ago in this city, the leadership of this city spent money developing a master plan. Why would I not stay on that when they took their time and went and sought expert help to create this document for the future of the city? Why would I not stay on the plan? Which is a clear answer. Don't. Stay on that, stay on your plan. Don't divert off it, stay on that plan. Then when you see the results come out, it was a result from planned strategies. You see what I'm saying? Then you can pretty much guarantee where your results are going to come from, knowing what you know by planning. When you do other than that, you end up other places. Because you never, whose plan are you following? Whose plan do you have that you can clearly say this is where we want to be and this is what we plan? I see the works, and don't get me wrong, I respect leadership for every portion of what it represents. But you have to really be mindful when you're doing political positions, because people do things for other intents and based on what they got planned, and you really got to know for yourself who's for the city and who's doing things that are going to play out against the city.
Do you have any personal feelings on the leadership of today with our City Hall administration and our council?
I believe they're leaders of trial and error. They're learning and they're doing things. Some things may work, some things may not work. Depending on how structurally sound your team is. You have to work as a team. You really have to respect each other's positions. Don't do that man's job. Let that man, he's hired to do his job. Stay in your lane. You have to really understand structure, and it's something that I had to learn, that I understand better now. The transparency of structure. I go through different institutes and look at how their foundation is structured, how they have their meetings, how they call their meetings to order, how their meetings come in and is scheduled for an hour, and when we leave it's within an hour. It's structure. And how they have officers set up, trustees set up. These are people in positions to help lead and keep a sound foundation. If you don't utilize those, or those who are in position do not do their job, then you're going to have weakness and you're going to have problems. And if it goes on for a period of time, it's going to be a disease, something that's going to play out unfavorable. And someone's going to have to come back and clean up what's been messed up for the term and time it's been neglected. So, in our current leadership, I support them. I support leaders. I support authority, and that's what my Lord tells me. Those who are put in authority are put in authority by his permission. So respect them. So I do. And I will do my best to support them. I always ask those that are in authority or in leadership, what is it that you may need from me to help you? So I try to support. You know, I don't point no fingers, just help.
Okay.
Become a part of.
Well, how has inequality impacted you personally, and how has it impacted the city of East Cleveland?
It's been a great learning experience. East Cleveland is a practice ground. My name is Duke. Middle name is Duke. And you know, it's a name that my dad gave me from where his parents named him a Duke. So I'm wondering, what is a Duke? You know? Because growing up, you know, my brothers and sisters, they, you know, Dookie. You know, they play with my name. And I'm thinking, what the heck? You know, why would you name me this, you know? But as an adult, looking into it and seeing, like the Duke of Earl. A Duke is one who practices in a land prior to him becoming king in his own land. So that's what a Duke is. So I'm looking like, well, how is it that I can learn from what's taking place in this community, East Cleveland, this city, and how can I insert myself in the whole and help resolve as many problems as I can to make things right. You know, so it's a beautiful opportunity because there's land everywhere. There's legal and like I say, I respect the leaders, and the leaders respect me for the respect that I give them, and the support that I give. You know, so the key is, how can I become more effective helping in my community, help raising the children? And I'm learning different plans. I went to the Neighborhood Leadership Institute at CSU, and you know, trying to take myself through different leadership. I went through a 5-day leadership with NOAA years ago, and it was very effective. You know, just learning how to help better, and bringing the resource, and using the resource, like what we're going to do with the movie night, you know, and bringing it forward, and how it's going to become a part of an instrument for education and awakening. You know, these are the things that we need to do. Support these babies. That's mainframe. You know, a lot of the guys who I went to school with, the football players, you know, they were abused. Our babies have been abused and are still getting abused sexually, by drug usage, peer pressure, misguidance. And I'm talking about adults doing it. You know, it is what it is. People are people, but you know, where do your moral guidelines step in and righteousness take place? You know, and that's why it's important not to leave an adult by themselves to monitor or be a guide. You need to have someone help support the structure of education and development, because things can get took the wrong way quickly. You know, you have to really be mindful of leadership and partnering, you know, strategic alliances, you know.
Well, can you recollect a memory or instance when the community fought for something?
I remember Noah bringing together the community to fight to keep Hearn Road Hospital open. And I thought it was really weird, though, because it's a hospital, you know, and if they're saying that the staff and dollars, you know, you can't make someone stay in business of a business that's not doing well, and they can see by data sheets how things are doing wrong. But at the same time, East Cleveland is a violent city, or have been known as and there was a need. You know, East Cleveland, Hearn Road Hospital funded a majority of other structures by the cases that came through there. More than anything, how many of them had insurance? You know, so was it a support or was it a blow? And how does that work? You know, there's transparency that's needed in that. And if you don't have those who legally understand the structure of how that works and the data and how it plays its part on profit, loss, and all that, this conversation is over, you know. But for the most part, Chantel Lewis and the council stepping up for the service department of the Postal Service on Shaw, you know. I kind of saw where America's federal postal system took a real big blow when email was produced. You know, people aren't buying stamps as much as they used to, and I know that played a part in how they were funding things. You know, so the digital divide. You know, there's just a new way of doing things. You know, I can get a letter from you in less than 1 minute. You know, for free. You know, with my internet provider, and then come out and have your signature and everything on it. You know, you know. So you know, innovations. The old world, as written in Scripture, the new will come, and the old will be replaced. You know.
Well, just like losing Huron Road Hospital, I don't think Cleveland Clinic abandoned us because they did leave us with a structure called the Stephanie Tubbs Jones Clinic. What do you feel about that?
Well, the whole process and Gary Norton's, Mayor Gary Norton's role in it, you know. Like I said, looking at leadership, the Lord put those in authority in which he sees fit. So the whole negotiated deal, at the time I were helping a few leaders in the city open up the East Cleveland Chamber of Commerce, you know, and they had acquired information that showed the improperness of how things went with the documentation and the inclusion of the whole body of government in East Cleveland, and the acceptance and conditions of that whole deal. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do, but you have to realize that things that are written and are on record can be researched, and you can see how things went in. You know, George Bush, for instance, you know, making your own war, you know, and the elements of it. You have to really be mindful of the decisions you make as a leader and the parts that they play when it comes down to being a servant of the public, you know. Good move, you know, I could say right now, because it happened. And there are things that are still helping the community, so you can't go against it.
So you feel like it might have been some underhanded dealings in the whole transaction?
I'm not going to say underhanding. I'm going to say our leadership needs to really embrace team. That's what I'll say, because there are those in leadership that didn't play their part, and there are those who did play their part. And the whole thing is, why didn't they play their part? And why wasn't the opportunity extended in the process of making a decision for the city? Because everyone has a position and authority that they need to play that will secure and make sure that the decision that the city is going to make is the best decision for the people. So, like I said, every part needs to do their part and needs to be respected for doing their part, and it needs to be honored that this is their part in the whole, you know. And with that element of transparency being respected in the structure, you get better inclusion, you know, without people feeling slighted one way. You did me, you're stepping on my toes, you know, all that foolishness that don't need to be a part of any team. Yeah.
Now the city of East Cleveland is seems to be a very good location. It's surrounded by institutions like University Circle, where they have Cleveland Clinic, Case Western Reserve University, university hospitals, and then you got Cleveland Heights not far away, and Euclid on another side. How have surrounding institutions and cities impacted East Cleveland?
Well, I don't think the leaders in East Cleveland have fully taken advantage of the resources around us, or even the assets that are within us, like the rapid station, Why isn't there a hotel system sitting around us with the abilities to rent cars and things of that sort, with attractions? Because anywhere in the world you can fly into Hopkins and you wouldn't need a taxi cab to come to East Cleveland. You catch a one-shot rapid train ride straight to East Cleveland, and there should be a hotel that like Tower City that the rapid pulls right in. You don't never have to step outside. You understand what I'm saying? That's a real big benefit there. If it's acquired and utilized properly. But what it takes to do that is to build up the visitation assets. Like I said, bring in an indoor water park. That'll help do some things. Bring in some more corporate retail outlets for shopping and just attractions to the city. I rode through University Circle just the other day, and it was almost like a gridlock when it's time to get off work. It's like you being in New York City. How is that created just right up the block? And I'm looking at this city, and it's like a trinkle, and it shows planning. It's all planned, All that traffic is being monitored and diverted to do what it's doing by those who can see transparently. And what our leaders need is to know how to make those plans work for this city, like it worked for that city.
Well, what is your vision for future East Cleveland? And tell me about the major issues that need addressing in order to better your neighborhood, the community, and the city.
Positivity. Just more positivity. Things that make you feel better. And it will start from them babies. Them babies are so beautiful. The babies are positive until you make them negative or you bring them into a negative environment. But we need to go ahead and build off what's positive, like Shaw Band. Why isn't that the theater filled with musical programs, dance programs? We love entertainment. Why aren't there any programs that promote that? That's pumping. We like rapping, we like modeling, we like partying, DJing. Why aren't those programs here? I know it takes people to create those programs, but I sat among a group called Bridges of Hope, and we did many case studies and pilot programs to try to identify what should be brought. And in the process of doing the pilot program, we came up with a guy who wanted to do puppet classes, and another guy who wanted to do his chess, teach chess. Chess is a good thing. Then we had a martial arts guy, and those things were nice. Don't get me wrong. But what is it that makes the kids stand up and want to be a part? When I was growing up, I wanted to be a part of Shaw Band. They used to parade up the street, and it was banging. I wanted to be a part of that because it had a positive energy to it. And it made me say, yeah. Like I said, band, yeah, man. You know what I'm saying? And music and dancing, that was attractive to me. And it was fun for the community. It always brought the community out. and the community always followed it. So like I said, our people have to really, learn what embraces us as a community. Like, where are all the basketball courts at? Black people like to play basketball. We like to play tennis. Where the tennis courts at? Where are all the things that are attractive to us in the city? And why aren't they implemented? Especially with the youth, because the youth wants to play and partake in it, but they have to go to other cities to become a part of something. And that's when them other cities make their cities more attractive and say, well, leave that city and come live in our city. So you have to realize that's what the problem is. We are not bringing home those things that belong to us, that make us happy. We need to put those things in our community.
How do you feel about Forest Hills Park?
Forest Hill Park is a great asset. It is so much that can be done there. The maintenance of it, like with the recreational department, that's one of the things that I thought would be beneficial to bring that water park here. Because with the money from the water park, you can use that money to help keep the maintenance on the whole park situation. Because it can be connected. Using those Segway scooters, the stand-up ones, to get on a path. I mean, there's, and then you can tour the whole parks. Well, you end up at Kane Park from East Cleveland without getting in the car or nothing. You can even walk the route, ride the bike the route. You have to make your environment inspirational. Just like Albert Taylor did when he made the designs for Forest Hill Park. He's the same guy who designed Central Park in New York. Rockefeller hired him to put the pattern up. So why haven't no one updated this element like they did in Cleveland Heights? Because if you ride up through Cleveland Heights, up Lee Road, you have the Cleveland Heights side of Forest Hill Park and you got the East Cleveland side of Forest Hill Park. And for some reason, people believe that the the Cleveland Heights side, the ice is colder on that side than it is. You just got to really appreciate your own and really embrace your own and make it your own before you go out and spend money with others people's and wondering why yours is not like it is.
Okay, what would you be prepared to do to participate in making East Cleveland a better place?
Teach. And starting with the babies. And some of the adults, teach classes that help people become better at what they do. And teach them how to embrace where they're at building. Entrepreneurship, how to build your city up, and street clubs, things of that. I rally together to bring street clubs together. I have a grant right now through my organization in which a nonprofit, CWRU, for lead poison prevention. We have an $8,000 grant that we give to the people who are in the city of East Cleveland and the surrounding suburbs. If they have any home repairs they need. The qualifications is most people in East Cleveland are past the economic part because it's set up kind of high. But the other thing is having the child visit your home, or if there's a child in your home, because we want to prevent lead poison. And these homes in East Cleveland, a lot of them got, elements that cause lead poison in our babies. Yep. So I do my part in outreaching for that organization, CWRU, in which I'm the outreach coordinator here in East Cleveland. And just getting the word out, having more fun and bringing more curriculum and programming to the leaders and working collaboratively with each other and bringing, different program and curriculum.
Well, Mr. Abdullah, I want to thank you for your time. This was a very informative interview. Before we close out, is there anything that you would like to add?
Well, I know that this interview will be set in the future, and there's a great grandchild I got coming that I know it's going to have a lot of power on the earth. And I'm that in tune with that one child. I just wanted to let that child know that I already knew you was coming.
Well, thank you again for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.